So today we are going to be talking about Google Analytics 4. I'm going to take this in small steps. We're going to be very focused on what we're doing and we're going to make sure that you guys are not overwhelmed by the dashboard, and we're going to give you make it very easy on where to focus your attention. So we're going to, of course, start with a quote. Statistics are like bikinis. What they reveal is suggestive and what they conceal is vital. Stupid scrolled. Sorry. So today you're not going to be required to be like a data scientist. All we're going to focus on is just navigating through the dashboard and also the most important metric to your business, which we'll cover when we go through a measurement plan. Also, you don't need to be the programmer. Basically, Google has abstracted away or just put it so you just have to pop in a little bit of code and then it will do all the magic for you. And then also, we're not going to get overwhelmed by this. There's going to be lots of like little widgets and lots of graphs that are going to be happening when we go into the dashboard, but we're going to be focused and make it much more bite-sized and manageable for you guys. And so our learning objectives, we're going to do with the why do we need digital analytics. We're also going to learn how to make a measurement plan. We're also going to cover what are the differences, because this is going to be a big change in platforms, and it's going to be it's April next year, I believe, is when it's going to get the old Universal Analytics will be shut down. We'll also go over some technical terms, just things that you're going to want to know about when you're going into the dashboard. And then we are going to jump into the dashboard itself. All right. So starting off, hey, Pip, can you turn your volume down just very slightly? Digital analytics is a tool that answers a couple of important questions. What happened? Like what's going on the page? When did it happen? So we can see it over time. Where did it happen? The page that it happened on, where on the page. We can also track stuff like that as well, which we'll get into more with the tag manager. There's going to be a bunch of metadata that comes with people coming to it. What device are they on? Where are they coming from? And potentially as well, like their age and gender as like a broad category. Of course, the one question that it won't ever be able to answer is the why, but it does give you a lot of the context, so you can then start to figure out why something happened. Of course, I want to briefly touch on that there are some ways that we can help figure out the why, and we'll cover these in a little bit later. Session recording tools are helpful. So there's Hotjar and Microsoft Clarity. We use Microsoft Clarity ourselves. It's got a slightly more generous free tier, which is the reason why we use it. You can do some message testing with Winter, changing around. Again, these are much more high level. We wanted to make sure that we touched on these, as well as surveys and usability testing. So why do we need a measurement plan? And what is that doing for us? So a measurement plan is basically, it's a way for us to log in to Google Analytics and not get totally overwhelmed with analysis paralysis. Like we've got a bunch of graphs and what do they all mean? And you just go down a rabbit hole. And instead, what we're going to do is we're going to identify what's the most important goal for a business. So generally, just about every website is going to have one or two metrics that are important. So number of purchases and forms filled out. So if you're getting leads for you guys with the school, the students are applying, you want more people to fill out those forms. And that's the idea that you would have, or people booking times with massages with the students. So what we're going to do with that is we're going to then take that number, so the forms filled or purchases, and then we're going to make a plan on how we're going to increase it. So a really basic plan would be increasing our Google traffic by doing SEO will get more people to our website, which means hopefully that we're going to get more forms filled. And so that way you've got a metric that will help you to focus around. So you can look at those two numbers, your Google organic traffic and your forms filled or purchases made, or forms filled as the example is there. And so that gives you a very concise two metrics to really look at and see, are they going up? And then from there, you can then go into those, what's happening? Why isn't that going up? I don't know if you guys can hear, there's chainsaws going on right over there. They're felling trees. So if you hear a weird buzzing in the background, that's what that is. So yeah, just to reiterate, how do you make a measurement plan? You take the most important metric and then you have a marketing tactic for how you're going to increase it. So whether that's the ads, email marketing, SEO, any of those are all ways that you're going to increase this. So covering some of the differences between the Universal Analytics and the Google Analytics 4. So the big thing about Google Analytics 4 is it's all about these data streams. And what they are is just a stream of data, and what's the data that it's made up of are events. So basically what Google has done is they rebuilt it so it's all around events, whether they're page views, whether they're people scrolling all the way down, whether it's a first time session, like it's the first time someone's coming to your website, that's also getting tracked as an event. And those events are going to have these flexible parameters. So they have this event has these features about it. So that could be if it's their first time, where are they coming from? So are they coming from Google Organic? Are they coming from our Facebook ad? So that's a bit of data that's getting added to it so that later on, the data streams can be put through Google's insights and intelligence. It's like an AI tool that we'll discuss when we go into the dashboard, but it basically enables them to do a bunch of AI to find these patterns that are happening within there. Whereas before, with the old universal analytics, it was very rigidly defined, all of the events that were going to happen. And so this way it's much more flexible, and they even enable you to do custom parameters as well. So I think the example I had was, say you have 3 newsletter signups, one at the top, one at the middle, and one at the bottom, and you wanted to track which one is actually converting. It's going to be all the same form, but you can add a little note that it's, oh, this one is the middle one. And so when they fill out the form, then that's going to be tracked that maybe it's like position middle. And so you can begin to see what those which forms are getting filled out more, and you can start to do a bit of a analysis there as well. One other thing that's really nice about the Google Analytics 4 is that there are a lot of built-in events that are just out of the box added. So scrolled, you'll see it says scroll, and it will trigger when someone makes it 90% of the way down the page. So just out of the box, it's nice for you guys to see that part. Or there's also files downloaded and external link clicked. So if someone's leaving your website, really useful for affiliate marketing, and you can track someone leaving your website to go to another website. The other thing that they've really improved is cross-domain tracking, which is basically, say you have a shop or an e-commerce that's on a subdomain of your website. So it's be like shop.mydomain.com, and you're sending people from your regular mydomain.com, and they're going over, and then that way they're just tracked the whole way through. And it makes it a lot simpler for you guys, that you don't have to stress about having to set up any additional track. They also has a much deeper integration with Google Ads, which we'll cover when we get to the Google Ads portion, about how to make like audiences based on specific events, really detailed stuff that you can do, which is, it's really powerful. It's a much more simplified dashboard. The old one had just the navigation on the left-hand side was so many tabs, and finding the spot you wanted to get to was really complicated for the first timers or anyone new to the platform. Whereas this one is much more, it's pared down, and it's a lot more simplified. And it's also built for the cookieless future. I'm sure we've all heard the story about the Facebook and their ads having issues with Apple. And that's only going to be happening further as people want better privacy regulations. And so GA4 is built to still keep people anonymized, but have it ready for the cookieless future. And so just a couple of terms that I wanted to cover. It's going to be, we're going to start off with users, fairly straightforward, of just someone that's come to your website and is browsing through your website. When they browse through your website, that's going to be called a session. And so a session is a 30-minute window. You can change that number, but the default is 30 minutes. I haven't really seen a use case for it being changed too much. I think maybe Pip, you mentioned a video. If you have it on a page or you do a lot of video content and it's longer than that period, you might want to extend it, but generally 30 minutes is a good amount of time. Also, to keep in mind, that's 30 minutes of activity. So say someone goes to your website, looks at a couple pages, turns off their phone, or go back to whatever they were doing, and then picks up their phone, goes back to your website. That's a new session, even if it's the same user. So those 30 minutes it's a good window for people to see the activity. And we've definitely seen it in our analytics, where there's been people that open up a page multiple times before they filled out the form. And so bounce rate is another thing that we'll keep in mind. So bounce rate is the number of people that just come to the first page that they land on, homepage or otherwise, and they just go, oh, this isn't for me, and back out right away. You're always going to have those people. It's just the important part is to have it be a healthy amount. Usually a healthy 50 to 70% bounce rate is generally what I would aim for. Anything that's on the far ends, less than 10% or over 90%, I start to get concerned, because that means that it might be broken. There might be, if it's too low, that might mean that the Google Analytics are multiple and they're all firing. And so it will really mess up the bounce rate, which is why you only want to have one Google Analytics on a page. And yeah, that's generally, it's a number to keep an eye on, as it's an engagement metric that Google does use. They maybe not they don't make it as overt, but it's definitely a factor of what they call user engagement. Okay, so dimension. So this is going to be one of the really important ones that we're going to want to know about. And so a dimension is basically, the way I think of it is, that's the ones with the words. So say it's a source medium, it's going to be Google Organic or Facebook or Google CPC. And so it's the named part. And then the metric is the number that it is of what we're counting. And so the think of it is, they're the rows. Usually dimensions are the rows, and the columns are going to be the metric. So Google Organic had how many users, and it's going to be 12, or I don't just making something up, but it's a way that you can visualize it, that it's the dimension is the thing you're trying to analyze, and then it's going to be against a metric, and that metric's going to be a number of how many pages they visit, how long do they stay on your page on average. And so dimensions are super important, as along with metrics. That's what you're going to be spending your time looking at, a lot of this. And so, yeah, certain metrics, we've got sessions, page views, the conversions, the bounce rate. See, they're all going to be represented by a number. So it's how many times did that event happen for whatever the dimension may be. So also a segment. So segment is super important. It's a subset of the data, meaning that if you think of it like a pizza, and say you have new users versus returning users, people that you want to know how many people you're getting that are new to your site and how many people are returning. It can be useful to know if people are coming back a lot and maybe they're not converting, then that's something to look at. You definitely want to have a healthy amount of people coming. And so what you're doing is you're seeing, 30% of my users are new users and 70% are returning. So that might be a bit of information that you want to know, because you want to make sure that you're getting new people to your site, and then they might come a couple times. So that's definitely something to look at. And a secondary dimension. So this is going off of a segment. So as an example, we have users, and then I want to know new users. And then my secondary dimension is, what device are they on? Are all my new users, are they mobile or are they on desktop? And it's that way we can see, okay, so most of the people that are coming to our site initially are on mobile. Okay, we need to make sure that we're fully optimized for that. So you get a subsegment of it. In Google Analytics 4, you'll see it called Add Comparison. That's the button that will activate that. It's definitely one when you get way more granular, but when you're first starting out, you won't need to worry about this right away. It's just one to keep in mind, that it's, maybe you want to pull out an extra bit of information. And okay, so source and medium. This is going to be your other big one with dimension and metric to keep in mind. So a source is going to be how would I put it? The platform that is sending you traffic. You can get Google Organic, you can get Google CPC, you can get Google Product Sync, which is the Merchant Center, which we'll cover later. But they're all coming from Google, but they're coming from different parts of Google. And then the medium is those different parts. So like I said, Google is the source, and then the medium is going to be Organic, CPC, Product Sync. So they're all going to be slightly different, because what you want to know is that Google is sending you lots of traffic, but you want to know where that traffic is, which part of Google that traffic is coming from. And so with all of that, we are going to dive into, we're going to start with Google Analytics 4's demo account, which of course I will make sure that there's a link in Kajabi for you. This is actually,
can you put the link in the chat? So if people want to get in there, they can.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Okay. Bye-bye, Mr. Chat. Okay, so now we're on the, oh, wow, yeah. It's a lot bigger than with this compared to I was doing this last night on the desk, on laptop. So this is the home page, and you can see
Oh, wait, hold on. If anybody wants to follow along, click the link in the chat, and that'll give you access to the demo account of Google Analytics. You can also use your own Google Analytics 4 account and follow along.
Yeah, the main reason why I'd recommend using just to get started is to use the Google Analytics 4 is they've got a bunch I'm just going to be showing you stuff about events and conversions that when we get to that Google set up a lot of these. And so we can see how that looks like with a fully optimized account. I'll also show you what it looks like in one that we've just created, and just seeing the differences of events that are being tracked out of the box versus Google, which is obviously, this is their actual merchandise account. So this is the actual Google store where you can buy stuff. And so the data is real. They just make it accessible, and it's got all the extra e-commerce stuff that you could see. So for just looking at it, it's going to be a lot fuller with data so we can poke at it. So there's a couple things. The first thing to note is going to be the navigation on the left-hand side. So we've got home, which is going to gives you a little snapshot, also has some things that you've recently visited as well as things you frequently visit. So this is just basically Google's way of just front end loading a bunch of stuff that they've noticed in your behavior. You've been going to these reports, and so they're just making it easy for you to get to them here on the homepage. We've got the reports tab. That's where you're going to be spending a lot of your time, because that's where you're going to be pulling in bits of information, creating reports, and just seeing how different sources and mediums are doing and that kind of information. And Explore is much more of that is a really new part of their platform, which is it's like reports, but you can do different visualizations. So maybe you want to do a funnel, and it's like the classic one would be the e-commerce funnel, where each step you get to see where the drop off is. And so that gives you just a way to take the data and visualize it in a different way. It's definitely there's some cool ones in there, but it's definitely, how would I say, there was a lot of analysis paralysis with this one, where you're like, okay, I've got all these tools, and then like, how do I actually use this one? So generally, I'd say when you're getting started, start with the reports. Advertising, that's going to show when you've got conversions set up, which we will cover with the Google Tag Manager portion, how to set those ones up. And what that does is in there, they're going to have attribution models. You can play with those. And obviously, so attribution, just to touch on that, it is a way that you count which part of the journey, because obviously we all take multiple steps to make a conversion. So which step is the one that counts the most? And there's all kinds of different ways to do it. The analogy I really like for attribution is, say you are looking for a place to eat your lunch, like you're going to try a restaurant. So you ask your coworker, and your coworker says, oh, I love going to the Chinese place just around the corner. And so that would be your first touch point, is someone's mentioning this. Then you see a newspaper ad for their menu, and they say lunch special, $10 off. And then you go open up your phone and you type in Chinese food, and they have a Google ad that says like order now. And then so you then order from them. But which point in that journey really converted you? Because all of those really matter in the end, right? You wouldn't have done it if you didn't get that recommendation from your coworker. Probably the ad in the newspaper helped. Every point of that journey matters, and you want to try and account for those parts so that you can see the whole journey. And that's the other part that is in there, is that they actually do have, they call them user journeys. And so basically it goes through all those points that I just relayed. They have them as digital points, where it's they saw an ad, they clicked on the ad, they didn't convert there, but then they did Google Organic, they searched for you, and then they converted. So you want to be aware of both of those points in the journey. Obviously, that's very short. It can be sometimes very short, sometimes a lot longer. And then the configure tab, that one is for, as you might imagine, configuring the events, making sure that they're set up correctly and that they're tracking properly, the conversions, that come out of events, because so events can become conversions. It's just like flipping a switch. You're not going to want to have everything, but you're as a conversion, but there's certain parts, like I mentioned, the purchase, that's definitely one you want to be tracking as a conversion, and parts like that are going to be really important. You can also configure the audiences that I touched on when we're talking about segments and deeper integrations with Google Ads. So that's where you're going to get to see building audiences and how you're going to use those audiences. That's going to be in there. And they also have something called the debug view mode, because what it used to be is in Universal Analytics, we would just use real-time pip to debug Google Analytics. Is it working?
What is debugging?
So debugging, a term that comes from software, is that you've got a bug. So there's a weird quirk in the software. And what you're trying to do is track through the steps on what led to that bug. And then you debug it, meaning that you remove the bug, I guess would be the best
So
way.
if your contact form isn't working, then you
Yeah.
would try to figure out why, right?
Yeah. Or if your contact form is working, and in this case with Google Analytics, it's not properly coming through in the data, then you can go into the debug view, run through those steps. And then because of that, you can then see, oh, this step didn't fire properly. Okay, I know it's this one event that I had set up and it's not working correctly. So,
And that's very advanced. So much later, you'll be learning about that. So don't even worry about it now.
oh yeah, no, the configure, pretty much everything that's in the configure will be coming up later when we talk about Tag Manager and how to use it. That's more of where that really comes through, especially the debug view, because you need Tag Manager in order to do the debug view. So don't worry about it. We're keeping this nice and simple. I just wanted to let you guys know that's what each of these tabs does. And admin, we've already been in there when we did the first setup with Google Analytics 4, and we are accepting the signals data collection. And generally, there's not much else in there at the moment. I'll be entirely honest. We will be
connecting things in there in a different class.
Yes, we'll be covering that. The only thing in the co-working hours, I'll be going in there to show you how to filter out your own internal traffic as the business owner or the marketer, so that you don't pollute the data. You do set that up in there, but most of the time, like, it's very rare that I go into there. So I would say the first place to start is going to be going into the reports, because this is what you're going to be looking at in Google Analytics.
Now, before you click in there, everybody needs to realize that Google Analytics 4 can be really overwhelming. There's a lot of buttons, a lot of levers. Your whole job in this whole class is just to start to get familiar. Phelan's going to show you the couple things you need to look at. You're not going to overly stress about this, because over time, it's going to be way more comfortable as you get to know Google's products.
I just have I just have a quick question. How do we know if we're in our GA4 or the UA? It's because it's got in the number, it will say UA dash and then the number, correct? So that's how I toggle between the two?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Great question. Phelan, do you want to? Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see here, just even in the demo account, when you click on the name of it up here, you can switch between accounts. You can see just in this, even if they didn't name it properly, I can just see, like you said, UA. And so this one is GA4, and you can tell because it doesn't have that UA at the start. It's a good question. Yeah, it's definitely. And the other way to tell is very quickly, if you go to the admin and there's only 2 columns, that means you're in the GA4, because there is no view, which is part of UA, the Universal Analytics.
Yeah, I was just asking because obviously my page looks very different and very empty in comparison to this. So I was like, where are all those fun things?
Yeah, fair. That definitely happens. That's why I was saying to start with the demo account here, just because it's going to have lots of the buttons and it's going to have more levers set up already. So you can play around with it.
You don't see any numbers in your own account in the Google Analytics 4, reach out to us, because it means maybe it hasn't been completely set up properly.
Yeah, and we're super happy to walk through that. So yeah, if you guys are not getting if there's no users at all, that would be something we should take a look at that, because you should be getting some, even if it's just users. And so the report snapshot, this one where you open up, it's got a lot of graphs that are Yeah, there's just a bit much for the moment. We're going to be focusing on mostly acquisition and specifically traffic acquisition. So this is a lot more pared down. This also has that graph that I was talking about, where this one is this is the dimension, and then it's got its metric that it's compared against. I'm also going to, because for some reason they're not going to let me do that. Oh, yeah, they're very weird about some of the graphs. They don't let you compare anything. Okay, this one. I generally always try to go for source and medium, because this one is just going to be telling you that last one was just the medium. So if it's organic or if it's CPC or referral, and I generally find that to be not very helpful. I like to see that it's Google organic, and then I can see the number of users. And they've got a bunch of these rows already set up. So we've got engagement. That's because Google Analytics 4 started out as an app analytics platform, and then now they've transformed it into both a website and an app analytics platform. It still has a lot of like engagement as their metric for what they are counting. And what they mean by that is, are people spending time on the screen on the website? And so this one, you can even hover over these, and they do give you little definitions as well. So that's pretty helpful as well. So you can see this is the number of sessions that lasted longer than 10 seconds, or had a conversion event, or went to 2 or more screens. So like bunching a bunch of those things into one metric here. So important to keep that in mind. You can also see which platform drove the most conversions, and we'll go into what those conversions are. And you can also see it over time, and it breaks down. You can highlight one of the lines as well. So maybe like this one here, okay, there's a huge spike in Google organic traffic on Friday, Saturday. And then you can go back and, were we doing something specific, or go to your search console. So a lot of this is using this as a jumping off platform to finding out why things are not happening the way you want to. And that's what we're trying to do here. And
I just want to interject for 1 second. I know you love me for this. Just so you know, as a marketer, it's going to be your job to go in here and look at the information. This is not necessarily for your client. It will overwhelm them. So it's your job to crunch the information and give them the answers. This is for the SEO in you, because SEO is all about figuring out what's going on. Is it working? Is it not working?
Yeah, it's definitely the other one that we do a lot of is send the client or the boss a data studio report, which is going to be very much the snapshot, and it's going to have some numbers overall. And so what we do is we use that also as a jumping off point, like I just talked about. So say conversion, like phone calls compared to last month, were down 50%. Okay, we got to figure out why they're down, what's happening, what changed, so that you use the data studio report as a jumping off point to get into the analytics and suss out why it's happening. Okay, so the other one that's going to be really, the other two that are really important here is going to be events under engagement. So this one, the other thing to keep in mind over on the right-hand side at the top of the graph is going to be rows per page, and you can extend that out I generally extend it out as far as they'll let me. And so we've some ones that are pretty straightforward: view cart, add to cart, reviewed order. This click is generally external link clicked. That's the default. So if they left the site to go to a different site, and of course the classic purchase is here as well. And yeah, there's obviously going to be some weird ones in here.
So the click would be something like if I had an external link because I'm using an external website to support what I'm writing about, that would be if the person clicked on that and went out of the site.
Yeah, the use case that I read of why they did this out of the box that are tracking it is for affiliate marketers, because generally anytime that someone's clicking an external link, they're generally going to get money if they convert. And it's also a way that affiliate marketers can say, hey, I brought you X number of traffic, please increase my rate. So that's why out of the box, they're having that as a default setting. Yeah. And there's definitely some weird ones that are in here. Where is that one? Yeah, predicted LTV payer, which is a cool one that they set up. So that's the predicted lifetime value of a user. And so Google's running like some algorithm in the background. That one definitely is not out of the box.
So lifetime value of a user would be, say, I got a client, they stayed with me for 10 years and they spent $100 a year, right?
Yeah.
There. So 10 times 100, it's 1,000.
Yeah.
Right? 10,000. Shit. Lot of zeros.
Yeah. Or if, say, you guys are the school, if they're taking multiple classes, so the average student will take 2 full courses from us. That's also, so you're taking an average of how many they are, and then what those courses that they get, and then that kind of gives like a lifetime value for an individual. Of course, this is on average. And so what I'll do is I'm going to show you what it looks like with an account that's brand new with the events tab as well. So you can see here, we've already got a bunch of events, and we can see that page view, user engagement. Again, that's like if they're spending more than 10 seconds or visiting multiple pages.
Wait,
The
in the
session
events?
starts. Yeah. So you can see that. Oh, one cool thing that Google has gotten a lot better of, you can switch between accounts on the same window. So I can go between accounts and it will just send me directly into the event. So if you switch between a bunch of accounts, it'll keep you on the same spot.
You should do that. Switch to a different account.
Switch to this one, which is going to have no data. Oh, small amount of data. But yeah, you can see that I'm kept in the exact same spot, well, no matter what, as long as I'm in Google Analytics for each of them, of course. So for this one, you can see that we've got first time visit, scroll. And so again, that's 90% of the way down the page is out of the box. That's what it does. File download. So they do have some downloadables that they wanted people to take. So this is good for them. And then also the external link click. And so the other one that you're going to be spending a lot of time looking at is going to be this one under engagement called pages and screens. Again, leftover of this being for apps that they use the word screens. And so pages is going to be what they're going to do is they grab the page when they display it. We can see that this is the home page, the community page, contact, our eggs, our story. And so you can see how this all kind of which one is getting the most views. And normally it's going to be your home screen. So you can also see down here how many people were viewing it. Also, how many, again, going back to new users, right? So you can figure out how many of the people are new users. They've definitely got a healthy amount. And then you can also see average user scrolls and their average time on page. So one thing to keep in mind also about average engagement time is that it's an average, meaning that all those people that bounced out right away, all those people are going to draw down because they're like 0.01. 1 minute average, it's actually really good because that means there's so many people weighing down that average that if you get a minute, that actually means that a bunch of people spent a bunch of time on the page. So that actually pushed it to a reasonable amount. So it's it may not look like very much, but it's definitely one where it can be very deceiving based on how many people just bounce out right away. Yeah. And so those are going to be the 3 that I would very strongly recommend you look at, because you can start to see how people are engaging with your website and also see what are people scrolling to the lots of your pages, scrolling down to the bottom. That's going to be really important under the events tab as well. And then also with the acquisition, I would start with the user acquisition. The traffic acquisition, they don't have as much flexibility with doing, they really like doing the medium, and they either make you do source or they make you do medium. And for some reason, they don't like out of the box letting you do that, customizing that part. One other thing that Pip and I were talking about when in preparation for this class that will give you guys a kind of an idea on where to get started, what questions to start asking, is going to be up in the top right hand corner. There's a couple of buttons here. So we've got the date range. Of course, this change it to any date range here, 90 days, 12 months, calendar year, and then or custom. You can also do a compare if you want to do it. I wouldn't recommend doing a compare if you've got lots of rows here, because it gets really messy and very confusing very quickly. Sure. Oh, with one that's messy?
No, just that one. Turn it on.
Oh,
It's
okay.
it's a lot of information. So later on down the road, you will utilize this to do comparisons, but not at this point in time because it can feel overwhelming. But you can see if you look at the direct from April 21st to May 18th, they had 132 users. And then May 24th to April 20th, they had 173. So they've actually had less users in the last, what is that, 2 weeks?
Yeah, but they've had more organic searches. So that's also a good sign for them, that people are Googling them. Also organic social, which is just not, it's just an awkward sentence to say.
Can you break that down? Do they show?
Remember, they don't do source medium. They do
Yeah,
source
but if you
or
went to
medium.
user acquisition.
Let me just switch to the source because that should tell us.
That's a
Facebook.
compare.
A lot of Facebook.
Oh, look at that LM.
Yeah, yeah. And we can't do the same filtering. We used to be able to filter these so that they would all end up as facebook.com.
We will be able to again at some point, and that was actually called something called regex, where you're basically grouping data together. So all the L.Facebook and all the LM.Facebook would all be just Facebook, because they're basically saying it's on a phone or it's on a desktop. So we can separate out that information ourselves out of the box. We want them to group all of the Facebook data together. So that's going to come eventually.
Yeah, it's
GA4.
definitely, it will, or there may be a way to do it in the internal, like the same place we do the internal filtering. They just don't make it very clear out of the box what is available, whereas the old system.
May I ask, what if like I'm noticing in my account, a lot of this info isn't even there, and all it says is no data.
Okay, let's go look at your account. The other thing though, just to pay attention to failing, can you share your screen quickly before we do that? I just want to dig a little deeper into, so you see that little graphy icon up at the top right hand side beside the pencil icon.
Yeah,
this is where you're going to start learning. If you click on this, I called it the wizard. It's actually Google Analytics Intelligence. This is where Google's AI is trying to help business owners and users understand what's going on with their data. If you click down on basic info, oh, you went.
Oh, I just went to, let me go back up.
So if you,
I want to, let me get back up. Sorry.
go back to the insights little icon, see if that works.
Yeah. Okay.
So basic info, if you click down on this, so this is where I would start. And so click on the how many users, right? How many users did I have last week? So Google's, and then it'll tell you. And so this way you can start to get used to the types of questions to ask. And then eventually you'll be going into the data and figuring out this yourself. That's just an easy tool to help.
Yeah.
So
well,
Michelle, sorry.
This will definitely get you started with a lot of the questions. And then if you come up with your own questions, you can actually ask them in here as well. And as long as it's like, how many people from facebook.com did I get in the last week? Like you can ask that question in plain English and it will hopefully spit back an answer, or at least that's what they say will be able to happen.
Do you want to take off the compare? Michelle, are you okay with, or Amanda, you okay with sharing your screen?
Yeah, I don't mind at all. I'm just curious, like you said, like there's some data, but then there's lots missing. So I'm just curious, like why, if this has been connected for like months, why would there be no data? Maybe I connected it wrong. And that's when you said that.
Yeah. Is it months? So it'd be like a month? Have we been, how long? I guess almost 2 months. Oh my God.
I've actually had GA4 set up prior to even our course. And I think maybe that's my issue, is that I did it as a total, let's just give it a go.
Yeah, good for you though.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why. So like on the homepage, some of the info is missing. Like obviously it says here, you said 1 minute, so that's decent. But so country and stuff is fine, but like insights is missing.
Oh, okay. So yes, what this is, it's basically they just don't have enough data. The reason why, so the insights tab, it needs a lot of data. That's
Okay.
why like the demo account is fun to play with, because you saw that there's 100,000 visitors to their website.
Yeah,
So there's
sure.
a ton of data for them to work with and find patterns. AI tools aren't very good with small data sets. If it's only a couple hundred people, they're not good.
Okay, got it. So that's also then why it's not showing me gender or like any of these insights, is just because I have a small business and obviously our budget for ads isn't that big. So is that kind of why, like?
Yeah, it's the number of users, and also so things about gender and age they're hiding a little bit more with, or they're not as prevalent. It's just the nature of how the ad system and their data collection's working these days.
Got it. Because yeah, obviously
Okay.
I was looking here and figuring out what are the best pages so that I can keep optimizing those pages as best as
Yeah.
possible. So yeah, that's what I was wondering. But it seems like now it's showing, whereas
Yeah.
before it wasn't. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, that looks really good.
Let's check out your events while we're here. So under engagement, the events. So events and conversions failing, can you actually explain the difference between them?
Yeah, so the events are like the cornerstone of how the system works. So everything that happens, whether you visit a page, whether you click on a box, whether you spend more than 10 seconds on a page, those are all events that have parameters about them, like where did they come, like things like where do they come from, what device are they on, all those things about that one event get trapped into Google Analytics 4 here. And then what can happen is, say you go, or here, I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind. Oh, no worries. Just going to show you what it looks like. So in the configure, this is the daybreak. So you see here that it's got like the number of events that have changed. And then it also says you can mark it as a conversion. So you could say that, say you have a specific click that you've set up, like a mail to link click we would have. And so that's like when someone clicks on the little, or a tell link. So their phone number at the top, they click that to call you. You want to track that because that means business. And so that's one where it would be tell link clicked would probably be the event name. And then you would mark it as a conversion because that really matters to the business. How many phone calls am I getting? And so these events can be turned into conversions. And then once
And you
they're
can see
conversion,
that, did you see that on the right-hand side? It said mark
Yeah.
as a conversion. So for this client, because I think the download file, if I'm not mistaken,
oh yeah, you're right.
should be turned on because they're downloading a wholesale, and then
Oh no, this one is the community docs. Remember, they're doing the community engagement stuff.
okay,
Those are the
So-
files that are getting downloaded.
interesting. So maybe we want to turn that off for now and talk to the client.
Oh no,
But
they do want that. They want to, because they want that as a metric to then go to City Hall to say, hey, this many people had downloaded our thing. They're showing.
can you
community
rename
engagement.
it here? I saw that pencil icon over to the right, 3 dots. Yeah.
It's mark as an NPA, which, NPAs are the personalization stuff. So it's about non-personalized advertising, I think is what they're referring to there. So
The main difference between Google Analytics, the Universal, and the GA4 is that you had to set up all of these things as conversions yourself or as events yourself and track them. So out of the box, they're doing a lot of things. However, like if you want to see if people scroll all the way down the page or halfway down the page, you would set up your own event tracking for that. For instance, I think they have a video play is one of the existing events out of the box, but a lot of people want to retarget, which is show ads to people who have visited their site or watched 25, 50, 75%, or 100% of their video. And so this is going to give us a lot more information out of the box. However, we're also going to want to be able to make our own what we're tracking as conversions, which we are slowly going to learn about and practice throughout doing this in our course.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to show you guys so if you go to the admin section and you click on data streams, and then you click on this data stream. So what we're doing here is you can see what they're measuring out of the box: file downloads, video engagement, site search, outbound links, scroll 90%, and view. They don't say that it's 90%, but I went through the documentation and you're muted.
That's so you can click on and off the cog over to the right hand side, and you can say, I don't want to track page views or scroll depth, and you can turn them off.
Yeah. And it also has these, turn them off, and they also have little descriptions of what's going on.
Yeah. Super fun. Everybody, you're like, yeah, Google Analytics. The reality is that if you start to play around and get used to this, you are going to be ahead of 90% of people who work online, because this is new and we are being forced to use it. But if you wait to the last minute to change over or learn about it, it won't help you. In a year or two from now, this is going to be second nature. For now, you're going to be well ahead of the curve.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, again, this is why we're starting small. You just want to focus on use the source medium. And that's a big one that you want to be paying attention to. And then we'll be going through how to do conversions and setting that up using Tag Manager. So don't worry, we'll be covering that part. Just get used to very much the source medium sections in the acquisition tab. That's the bread and butter of where you want to be looking at analyzing your data, and start there. Honestly, even in the old analytics, pretty much the acquisition tab was pretty much the only place I really like. There was a source and medium under acquisition was the only place I really looked in the old UA, because to me, that was the most important part. Where's the traffic coming from? What's converting the most? Who's spending the most time and not converting? These are all questions that I wanted to know about. And so that's where I would spend most of my time. Is also, I would avoid the acquisition overview, because much like the snapshot, it will overwhelm. I find it very overwhelming. Whereas like the user acquisition or the traffic acquisition are a little more granular, and it has a little simpler, so you can really start to dig in. You're still muted.
I know. In the end, we're going to learn, hey, I did Facebook advertising. Did it work? Hey, I'm doing Google ads. Is it bringing me more traffic? Is that traffic doing what I want? Because you can, if you figure out what people are doing along their journey, for instance, if you're doing Google ads and then nobody's clicking on the ad, it means there's something wrong with your ad. If you do Google ads and people click on the ads and they go to your website, but they're not making a phone call or clicking on the mail to link, then either your tracking hasn't been set up or you have to change something on your web page. So we get little signals along the way telling us, hey, we need to improve this or that. On most websites, you're going to see the homepage gets the most traffic. The second page that usually gets the most traffic is the about page. So we know that most people go from the homepage to the about page and then over to the services.
Yeah, that's the general. Of course, it's a little different with e-commerce because they're different. But
Or
yeah,
when you have a
definitely.
wicked awesome blog post that gets half your traffic.
Yeah. And then, all right,